Okay, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night, so we're going to learn tonight, as we mentioned, Monday night, we're going to learn the laws of the 9 days, which begins tomorrow night. And then the Mitzvah Shem for half an hour, and then we'll learn the law, time. Okay, so in halacha, in Gemara, it doesn't speak about the 9 days. It speaks about the week of Tisha B'Av. But the bottom line is, as far as most people are concerned, especially Ashkenazic Jews, we have all the customs that's called the 9 days. The 9 days starts from Rosh Chodesh Av through Tisha B'Av. Now, because it's closer to the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, so there's certain strictnesses that are customs, and some halachas, some are customs that are done during the 9 days. Number one, once the month of Av enters, is generally speaking not a mazel dika time. It's not a good luck time for the Yid. Therefore, it says if you have court cases with a non-Jew, try to postpone it. Whatever you could do, don't do things in the 9 days in the month of Av that you need a little bit of mazel for, because it's not a lot of good mazel. Now, building, construction, if you're building decorative things, like you want to build a patio, a garden, not things that you need to live in. So then, halachically, you're not allowed to do it during the 9 days. Unless if you hired a contractor before the 9 days, and he started working already, and if you don't, you're going to lose money or something like that. So then, halachically, you could. It says it's better to convince him to, postpone it until after the 9 days. But that's only for like painting, home decorating, things like that. But if somebody needs to fix things around the house, or they're redoing their kitchen and they need a kitchen or a bedroom or whatever, so then halachically you're allowed to do it during the 9 days, because that's not called pleasurable building. It's things that you need. Planting, the same thing. You don't plant for pleasure. Like somebody wants to plant flowers or things like that. You just don't do that during the 9 days. Now, starting from tomorrow night, including Rosh Chodesh, because a lot of people misunderstand it, and I don't know why. The 9 days begins from Rosh Chodesh Av, which begins tomorrow night. So tomorrow night at sundown, let's say approximately sundown in LA time. I'll give you in 1 second. I'll tell you in a second. Sunset today is 7:57. So you have to figure like 5 to 8 LA time in LA. No more meat, no more wine through the 9 days except Shabbos. So if you are planning to eat dinner on Wednesday night, you need to make sure to have finished the meal, if you can eat meat, before 7:55 in LA. Now, why is there a custom not to eat meat or drink wine during the 9 days? So there's 2 reasons. Number one, it's pleasurable. It's simcha. The Gemara says there's no simcha without wine. There's no simcha without meat. So therefore, it brings simcha. And these days, the Gemara says, mama'atin de simcha. We have less simcha than the rest of the year because the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. And secondly, to commemorate the fact that because there was no Beis Hamikdash, they didn't bring korbanos, they didn't bring sacrifices, and they didn't bring the wine libations that went along together with the sacrifices. So therefore, if these things were stopped, so therefore to commemorate that aspect of the loss of the Beis Hamikdash, so therefore the 9 days you don't eat meat and you don't drink wine. Now, by the way, that includes chicken, that includes grape juice. Now, beer, you're allowed to drink during the 9 days. Vodka, mashka, liquor, scotch, you're allowed to drink during the 9 days. You can't drink wine or grape juice because that actually brings simcha. What happens if somebody cooked a food together with meat, even though there's no meat in it? Let's say you cooked meat and potatoes together in a pot. Those potatoes you can't eat either during the 9 days because they're real meat. Just like if you make chicken soup and take out the chicken, so you can't eat the chicken soup either because there is a taste of chicken. Now, what happens if somebody is not well? There are many people that have very bad diets. I mean, very limited diets, let's put it that way. Very limited diets. They can't eat meat, they can't eat fish, they can't eat dairy. So halachically, for ill people, you could. Preferably, if you're able to eat chicken instead of meat, that would be better. But somebody who's ill is allowed to eat meat. Again, if they can, preferably they should eat chicken, not meat. If they can't, they can halachically eat meat. What? Turkey is like halachically chicken. So, you know, if you have chicken, turkey, obviously that's better. Now, you're allowed to eat part of food that was cooked in a meat pot. Even if, like we're learning Wednesday nights, even if the meat pot was used that day for meat, but it's clean, and you cook something parv in it, you're allowed to eat that parv food. So basically, it means like this, that when you're cooking for Shabbos, there's a lot of impractical dinim, especially for women cooking. Number one, you can't cook any food in the 9 days with wine. Many people make meat, fish with wine, whatever. You cannot cook with wine, just like you cannot cook with meat. So you can't cook with wine. Women have to be very careful when they're cooking for Shabbos. Many times they have a tendency of tasting the food that they're cooking. You have to be very careful Friday, because Friday you're still not allowed to eat meat, even though it's a Rosh Chodesh. So you're not allowed to eat meat. So you have to be careful Friday afternoon when you're cooking for Shabbos. You have to be careful not to taste any of the meat or the chicken, the meat, or what you have to be careful not to taste it. If somebody needs to lick it just to see and spit it out, that's okay. What happens if by mistake somebody forgot it was the 9 days? They have a piece of meat in front of them and they made a bracha. They made a bracha shakol near bidvarim, and there's nothing else that they can eat instead. So halacha says you take a tiny piece of meat because you don't want to have a bracha in vain, and it's only a custom anyway. So therefore, you made the bracha. You eat a little piece of the tiny piece of the meat, just that it shouldn't be a bracha of atol. Or same thing with wine. If somebody by mistake made a bracha very piagofen on a cup of wine, then he realizes it's the 9 days. So then you're not allowed to, you take a little sip and that's it. Now, what happens if somebody brings Shabbos in early? In the summer, many times people bring Shabbos in early. If people bring Shabbos in early, for them, that's Shabbos. So let's say, for argument's sake, they bring Shabbos in 7 o'clock, Shabbos. So then for 7 o'clock, for them, it's Shabbos already. So if it's 7 o'clock, they can eat meat. The same thing applies, by the way, to little children. I'm not big babies, but children that eat their Friday night dinners early because it's summertime, it's very late. So if they're eating their Shabbos meal, let's say even 6 o'clock, but is their Shabbos meal, then halacha says they are allowed to eat the meat because for them, it's their Shabbos meal and it's only educational anyway. Okay? Now, when are you allowed to eat meat and drink wine? So if you have a Sudas mitzvah. A Sudas mitzvah means a bris milah, pidyon haben, things like that is a Sudas mitzvah. So then you would be allowed to have meat and wine. By a siyum, many people are lenient that they make us end a tractate of a Gemara. You can't just learn a few mishnahs. You finish a tractate of Gemara, and then they will eat meat and drink wine. In our circles, usually the custom is we don't. In the camps, they do it for the kids. I'm not saying it's not allowed, but we try to avoid eating meat by a siyum. Okay, now another important thing, and this is very important for women to know, especially whoever does the laundry, before tomorrow night. And that is as follows. You're not allowed to launder clothing during the 9 days. That includes towels, linen, garments, everything of that sort, you're not allowed to launder during the 9 days, which means any laundry that you're planning to do, you have to do tomorrow before 5 to 8 LA time. You have to do all the laundry. Many people call, but their housekeeper comes Friday and Sunday and Monday. They're not allowed to. You can't do laundry even through a non-Jew. Okay? So people have to make sure that the laundry is done tonight, tomorrow, before 5 to 8, because once the 9 days begins, you're not allowed to clean garments. If somebody has one garment and they have nothing else to wear, then you can wash that, only the garment that you must have. And even that really is a very halachic problem, because really you're not supposed to do any laundering whatsoever during the 9 days. Now, children's clothing, little kids, they get dirty a lot. Especially years ago, they didn't have disposable diapers. They would have, cloth diapers, and that would get dirty a lot. So those would be allowed to be washed during the 9 days. But otherwise, linens, handkerchiefs, tablecloths, towels, all those things are not allowed to be washed. Another thing I want to mention, because it says in halacha, you can't change the linens even for Shabbos. In the 9 days, you're not allowed to put on fresh linen, even for Shabbos. So if you're planning to change your linen for this Shabbos, you're going to have to do it before Thursday night. And you have to make sure to lay on it a little bit, that it shouldn't be freshly laundered. The same thing applies to clothing. You're not supposed to, halachically, you're not supposed to wear laundered clothing during the 9 days. You have to understand, this is a concept, we mentioned this in the other classes. The destruction of the Beis Hamikdash is a very sad time in history. Just like when, God forbid, somebody loses a parent. So you have Shiva, you have Shloshim, and you have the year. Shiva is the strictest, then Shloshim, the 30-day period, and then you have the 12 months of mourning for a parent. Here we have a similar thing in the reverse. The 3 weeks are like the year. The 9 days is like the 30 days. And Tisha B'Av is like Shiva. That's the analogy halacha gives. So you're not allowed to wear freshly laundered garments. Now, that doesn't apply to underwear. That is not a problem, changing underwear and socks and things like that. But like shirts, pants, dresses, blouses, things like that, you cannot wear freshly laundered garments during the 9 days. Except on Shabbos. Shabbos, Shabbos is no different than anything else, except we said the linen, you cannot change fresh linen for Friday night, even for Shabbos. So what people should do, what it says in halacha is, you put on the clothing that you need to, again, it doesn't include underwear, it includes outer clothing. You put it on for half an hour. Some people say you can even, let's say, wear 3 shirts at the same time for half an hour, and then it's called laundered, and you hang them up, and then, you know that whatever amount of shirts, you do it as much laundry that you're going to need to be cleaned for the 9 days. If garments have a little spot on it, that there's no problem cleaning it. Okay, that's not a problem at all. Now for Shabbos, you should know, I mentioned this in Shul the other night. In the time of the Alter Rebbe, most non-Hasidic communities wear their weekday garments. They wore their weekday garments on the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. Mamish a weekday. Chassidim don't do it. The Alter Rebbe was emphatic that you don't. In fact, the Vilna Gaon also held like that. You don't change anything. I mean, you don't, Shabbos, there's no laws of mourning. Shabbos, you put on freshly laundered clothing, you drink wine, you eat meat, whatever needs to be done. Okay, now, as far as haircuts, obviously you can't take. Cutting nails, halachically, you're allowed to do them l'kavod Shabbos. Concerning next Shabbos, which is Mamish Erev Tisha B'Av, many authorities write, if you cut your nails every week, then you can cut them on that Friday also. But if you don't cut your nails every week, you should not cut them on that Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. But tomorrow, this Friday, it's Rosh Chodesh, but you're allowed to cut nails for Shabbos. And if somebody cuts their nails every week, they can cut them next Friday also for Shabbos. Now, you're not allowed to purchase any clothing during the 9 days. You're not allowed to purchase any clothing. The only exception to this rule, and people should try to avoid having that problem, on Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to wear leather shoes. Okay, so you need sneakers. We'll call them sneakers that don't have any leather in it. Ideally, if you don't have them, buy them tomorrow, before the 9 days begins. If somebody didn't buy sneakers and they need to buy Tisha B'Av shoes, they're allowed to buy it during the 9 days, but they cannot wear it until Tisha B'Av. Because you can't wear it during the 9 days. 9 days, you're not allowed to wear new clothing. You don't make purchases of garment. You don't make purchases of expensive things, household things, everyday things that you need to buy, but you don't buy an expensive set of china during the 9 days, or gold cutlery you don't buy during the 9 days. But things that you need, household food, things like that, there's no question that you're allowed to buy during the 9 days. Repairing garments, if something tore, you're allowed to fix it. Somebody called me before, their mother had a whole bunch of dresses that they're not brand new, they were worn already, but she wants to fix the hem. It's not that it tore. She just wants to change it was too long, too short, whatever. So that you can't do during the 9 days. If something ripped, you're allowed to fix it. If a button fell off, you're allowed to do it during the 9 days. But just things like that, you wouldn't be allowed to do. Women that knew needlepoint, weaving, needlecraft, all those things are not allowed to be done during the 9 days. Okay, now, the next thing over here is bathing, swimming, things like that. But before I get into that, let me just say one more thing. We mentioned before, the 9 days are not a lucky day, okay? Every year, God forbid, they're not Mazel Dika days, okay? People have to be extremely careful. You don't do anything wild during the 9 days. In fact, it's questionable. You need to ask a shaila. If they're traveling, can you travel during the 9 days? Can you go places? There's a lot of dinim. You need to ask a shaila because sometimes they'll tell you yes, sometimes they'll tell you no. But if somebody, I'll tell you another example. All the camps, many of the camps, the split between the first trip and the second trip end up to be in the 9 days. So over there, for sure, a child can come home from camp. They're coming home. So that's not a problem. But you don't do dangerous things. The custom, you don't go boating during the 9 days. You don't go river rafting during the 9 days. Anything that is in any way a little bit dangerous, during the 9 days, you avoid it. Because again, it's not a Mazel Dika time. Now, halachically, you're not allowed to go swimming during the 9 days. Even just to cool off in the pool, you're not allowed to. If somebody needs to swim for health purposes, they need to ask a shaila. Sometimes it's allowed. Let me just get to two questions. Is Dalit Amis enough to wear clothes? No, it should be at least a half an hour that you wear the clothes. Some poskim even write longer, but if you wear it for half an hour, it's called wearing it. The second question was asked, if a dishwasher breaks, you'll be able to buy one before the 9 days and it'll arrive during the 9 days. If you need a dishwasher and it's an appliance that's not pleasurable appliance, so to speak, fancy, yes, it's a household appliance. especially if you ordered it before the 9 days. You can order it and it can be delivered during the 9 days. That is also not a problem. Okay, so again, swimming is not allowed. Halachically, and just wait until I'm done. Halachically, you're not allowed to shower during the 9 days. It's like the middle of Shiva. Your hands, face, and feet in warm water without soap, halacha says you could do. Today we are in a gather of what's called itzdinis, very meticulous, very immaculate, very sensitive to these things. So, bottom line halacha, okay, without getting into any lumpness of this. Bottom line halacha is if somebody feels they need a shower during the 9 days, they can take a quick shower. If they need soap and shampoo, they could do it. But it should be a quick shower. You don't sit there. For instance, sit in the bath is not allowed, unless you're just washing in the bath quickly and get out. But to sit in a shower, just a hot shower, and just have a good time in the shower is halachically forbidden. You feel dirty, you can take a quick shower. Okay, people that go to mikveh every day are allowed to go to mikveh during the 9 days. But again, I mentioned this many times, I'm going to mention it again. Even people that go to mikveh during the 9 days and they want to take a shower, they should not take a shower in the mikveh. It's wrong. All Rabbanim say this. If you're taking a shower, you feel dirty, you need to take a shower, take a shower. Take it privately in your home and then go to the mikveh. Or later during the day, take a shower if you need privately in your home. It's wrong to go to a mikveh in a public place and take a shower as if to show the 9 days don't exist. That is 100% wrong, and I heard a lot of Rabbanim talking that it should not be done. Now, if somebody has to go, for instance, a woman has to go to mikveh, so then she does all the preparations normally, the regular showers in the bath, because that's for the sake of a mitzvah. Now, in halacha, even out of Shabbos, you really shouldn't shower the whole body. Nevertheless, in the Hasidic world, excuse me, and more in the entire world, the Hasidic poskim are lenient that for Shabbos, you're allowed to take a regular hot shower. So you go to the mikveh Erev Shabbos, then you can take a shower in the mikveh and you can go to mikveh. Or if you're home, the custom is in the Hasidic world that they do take a shower for Shabbos, going to the mikveh, not going to the mikveh, but they take a regular shower Erev Shabbos for in preparation for Shabbos. Let me see what else there is there. If anybody has any questions, just type it up. And if not, it's 5 minutes. Okay, I don't want to do Tisha B'Av yet. Next week with Mitzvah Shem, we're going to do Tisha B'Av. Let me just say one last thing over here. We mentioned this in Shul the other day. In halacha, it doesn't talk about the 9 days. I mean, in the Gemara. The Gemara speaks about the week of Tisha B'Av. The week of Tisha B'Av is halachically forbidden to do most of these things. Few things are customary, but the week of Tisha B'Av is basically generally very strict. 7th of Av, which was the day they went into the Beis HaMikdash and started defiling it, is even stricter. So now the question is like this. When Tisha B'Av falls out on Sunday, that means the 9th of Av falls out on Sunday, like it does many times, then you have no week of Tisha B'Av, because Tisha B'Av is Sunday, right? If Tisha B'Av is Sunday, the week before, it's not the week of Tisha B'Av. This year, though, Tisha B'Av is Shabbos. If Tisha B'Av is Shabbos, so now that we push off the fast to Sunday. So now the question is, what is the week of Tisha B'Av? Is the week of Tisha B'Av the whole week before, or just, and it's a big discussion in halacha, and for custom things, you could be lenient. For halacha things, you have to be stricter. One more thing I do want to mention about wine, I should have mentioned it before. And this is when you make Havdalah Saturday night. You make Havdalah Saturday night. What do you do with the wine? Because now it's not Shabbos anymore. In halacha, it says, if you have a kid that understands what Shabbos is, but he doesn't understand what mourning over the Beis Hamikdash is, which approximately is maybe between 7 and 11 years old. So then you give the kid the wine to drink. In other words, the man makes Havdalah and he gives the wine to the kid to the drink. Okay? If there's no kid, you drink the wine yourself. In general, in our circles, we're not that makpid of giving it to a kid. You make Havdalah, you drink the Havdalah yourself. So somebody asked the question, if I give it to a kid, I'm going to have to give him grape juice. I can't have the kid drinking wine. So is it better for me to make Havdalah on wine and drink it myself, or to make it on grape juice and give it to the kid? So the answer is it's better to make it on wine and drink it yourself, because it's preferred to make Havdalah over a cup of wine versus grape juice. So obviously, if people can't drink wine, they drink grape juice. But if it's a choice of wine versus grape juice, and you drinking it versus the kid drinking it, the halacha is you make Havdalah yourself, and the kid has to drink. Because when the kid drinks, he has to drink up the wine. He has to drink up the majority of the cup. So, so this Saturday night, because it's already in the 9 days, so then the thing is, if you make Havdalah and nobody's around, you drink the wine yourself. If there's a kid from between the ages, let's say of 7 and 11, so then you give them the wine to drink. And if they can't drink it or they don't want to, drink it yourself. But again, you just can't go drinking wine, and it applies to the Shchedesh also, like we mentioned before. Starting from 5 to 8 tomorrow night in LA, through the 9 days, the laws of the 9 days begin, and all the laws of wine and meat and all that. Okay, next Wednesday we will discuss the dinim of Tisha B'Av, and there's a lot of interesting dinim because this year Tisha B'Av is Shabbos pushed off to Sunday, so there's a lot of variation. What do you do on Shabbos? What do you do on Sunday? We'll discuss that in Mitzvah Shem next week.